Commissioner, I'm gonna
Meet with him tomorrow, correct? Sorry.
Good morning, everybody. We'll call to order our May 7th, 2019 regular meeting of the Mason County Board of Commissioners. We'll begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. Chief Hansen, if you please lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 3, if clerk would please take the roll.
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Kevin Schutte.
Here.
Commissioner District 3, Sharon Trask.
I'm here.
Very good. Moving on to item number 4, correspondence and organizational business. Item 4.1, if the clerk would please report the correspondence.
Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board sent liquor license applications for the following. North Mason Coalition of Churches and Community for an event at the Hub, 111 Old Belfair Highway in Belfair, and Harstein Island Community Club at 3371 East Harstein Island Road North in Shelton. Gerald Fry sent in a letter regarding roads within the Lake Cushman Homeowners Association. Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, sent a letter of map revision based on a field determination document. We received a letter of interest from Kay Massey to serve on the Mason County Cemetery District Number 1. Russell Sackett sent in an application for Mason County Historic Preservation Commission. Jeff Bickford sent in an application for the Parks and Trails Advisory Board. Forterra sent in a notice of conservation easement acquisition of property in Mason County, RCO application number 19-1533. And William Bezanson brought in an application for the Civil Service Commission.
Very good, thank you. Item number 4.2, we have a proclamation for National Corrections Officer and Employee Appreciation Week, and I'd ask Commissioner Trask to please read it.
Thank you. Whereas correctional officers are trained professionals dedicated to maintaining safe correctional facilities and ensuring public safety, and whereas correctional officers and employees are responsible for the custody, care, and rehabilitation of thousands of inmates every year, as well as the maintenance of safe and secure facilities, and whereas correctional officers and the employees serve admirably in many different capacities, including jail deputies, supervisors, administrators, nurses, chaplains, social workers, teachers, cooks, and contractors. Whereas correctional officers and employees teach, train, mentor, counsel, and treat thousands of offenders, and whereas correctional officers and employees provide inmates with direction, hope, and a new focus while assisting with reentry and life outside corrections, and whereas correctional officers and employees rise to meet any challenge and serve this honorable profession nobly and admirably. And whereas correctional officers and employees deserve the recognition for their service and should be commended by leaders in the profession, the public, and our elected officials for the tremendous job they do and the exceptional performance of duties under the most difficult circumstances. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Mason County Board of Commissioners, the week of May 6th through the 12th is National Corrections Officers and Employee Appreciation Week, and we commend all those who currently serve in the corrections professions, those who have served and those who have given their lives in pursuit of this most honorable profession, dated this 7th day of May 2019.
Very good, thank you. And then we have a fancy proclamation that we can share with you here. Chief Hansen, if you want to take it back to the folks in the jail.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4.2, we have a proclamation recognizing National Police Week. National Police Week, May 13th through 20th. Whereas Congress and the President of the United States have declared May 15th, 2019 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which it falls is National Police Week. And whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in the communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Mason County Sheriff's Office, Shelton Police Department, Skokomish Indian Tribe, Squaxin Indian Tribe, Squaxin Island Indian Tribe, Washington State Patrol, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, Washington Department of Corrections, and other state and federal agencies. And whereas the members of our law enforcement agencies play an essential role in safeguarding our community, and whereas it is important for all residents to know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agencies, and that members of our law enforcement agencies recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent and most vulnerable among us. And whereas the service and sacrifice of officers killed in the line of duty should be honored, remembered, and recognized during this dedicated week and throughout the year. Now, therefore, the Mason County Board of Commissioners call upon residents of Mason County to observe the week of May 13th through 17th, 2019 as National Police Week, recognizing all law enforcement officers, past and present, who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to their communities. Be it further resolved, the Mason County Board of Commissioners call upon residents to observe May 15th, 2019 as Peace Officers Memorial Day to honor law enforcement officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have been disabled in the performance of their duties, and recognize and pay respect to the survivors of all fallen law enforcement officers, dated this 7th day of May 2019. Chief Sperling, if you come forward. You want to, whoever, all rise. There you go. Okay, moving on to item number 5, open forum for citizen input. If there are members of the public that would like to address the commission on items that are not listed on today's agenda, or that we're not having a public hearing on later this morning, you can raise your hand. The chair will recognize you and come forward. We have a 3-minute per person and generally 15-minute total time limit on public comment in this portion. So if you'd like to comment, Monty?
Thank you. Hello, my name is Monty Ritter, 538 Maple Street. I was here a month ago and I was trying to explain that in supporting the public benefit rating system, that I think we were kind of missing something, that there was some kind of gap in there. Although since we have till July 15th before the county, the board decides to move on that issue, I thought we had some time. However, a couple weeks ago, we had a nice presentation in this room I watched on Mason Web TV. And the Planning Commission now says that we are moving ahead with doing a bypass to the Romance Hill connector, going up there and working with the U.S. Navy and all this sort of stuff. And unfortunately, in order to get that done, there's like an 8-month window for the Navy to be involved in this and something. And as you may recall, back in January or in February, I came to you with a proposal from some citizens in this same area, Romance Hill, and they'd like to be able to create some trails in that area. I also have another, I can't remember where I got that from, but it's another trail that goes in the same area. And what I've noticed is they're in our real comprehensive county plan. However, if you look at our Mason County Parks and Trails comp plan, you might notice that we do not have anything in this that supports us using a public benefit rating system as a method of paying for this kind of an operation. And in order to receive grant money from the Recreation and Conservation Office, we would actually need to have the public benefit rating system be included in our comp plan. And I have to say, Frank and I, we've kind of worked together on this in the past. And you can see back in 2011, we worked with the Trust for Public Lands and they did a feasibility study on conservation finance feasibility study. Nothing that we have ever seen included a public benefit rating system. And I'm afraid that if we wait until July 15th and the county decides that they want to approve a public benefit rating system, we'll have to go a little bit further so you can include it into our comprehensive plan. And what I'm suggesting is, if we include a public benefit rating system as a possible funding source for trails and recreational opportunities, we wouldn't run afoul with Recreation and Conservation Office if you should decide to do it. It's just a possible finance option for you. It is not a commitment from the Board of County Commission that you will create a public benefit rating system. However, my concern is we need to have a public benefit rating system be one of the items that is inside our comp plan. And that is a very imperative because we don't want to have the Recreation and Conservation Office come to us at the very end and say, no, we are not, we didn't cross all the Ts and dot all the Is. I think that's a concern, and I think it needs to be addressed prior to July. Actually, I'd say that perhaps we should address it right away. So then maybe if the people who had originally come up with this, maybe they'd like to be involved with the Planning Commission and maybe kind of put some of their words in so that when July 15th happens, if you do decide to create a public benefit rating system, they can hit the ground running and there won't be anything, you know, that might be in the way. Does that make any sense there, or is there a question to what I just said?
I don't have any particular questions.
Well, I'm curious, would you guys be willing to, a month ago, you said you might be willing to bring this up in a business agenda item during your Monday meetings. And I thought that'd be great if we could wait, we have till July 15th. I'm concerned that I prefer, or I would hope, would you guys be willing to bring this matter up, like maybe in the next couple weeks or so that we have a little bit of time so that you guys understand what's happening? I mean, because I don't think we can wait till July 15th like I thought. I just was hoping you guys could move it up on your schedule if you were thinking of looking at it at all.
Yeah, I haven't considered that option. I'm not sure that that's what public benefit rating system is designed to do in terms of taking money from that and using it for parks and recreation. So I'd have to learn a little bit more about that. But
okay, mind you, if I may, just as I stated on January 15th, there is a simple way, and it's mentioned and say it places everything into a perpetual easement while staying in private hands. When you get a contiguous corridor that's a public corridor, at that point it could be given to the county, which would be used as a match, and that would be considered by the Recreation and Conservation Office as the county's portion, and of course that match would be used at the higher Yellow Book appraisal rating, because that's just, it comes from federal funds at a certain point, is where the Recreation and Conservation and Salmon Recovery Grant money, it's actually federal money and does require a Yellow Book appraisal. Anyways, I hope you guys can look at it again, and if not, I'll be back to encourage you one more time.
all right, very good. Thank
Thank
you, Monty.
you.
Anyone else for public comment on items not on? Would you like to speak? Okay.
I didn't bring a bunch of papers, so.
See raffle tickets, though.
Huh?
I think I see raffle tickets.
Yeah, that's the last of them. Bill Ziegler, William Ziegler, from Spencer Lake area. And I'm an old retired business guy, and I didn't get out of the habit of studying the business news every morning. And I see that the unemployment rate's 3.6%, lowest it's been in 50 years. Being a logic guy, I said, well, what else has happened in 50 years? And I went back, and President Nixon in 1971, in June of 71, said that drugs were the largest threat to the United States. That's close to 50 years ago. He penned the thing called the War on Drugs, which I think maybe we've lost since it's been 50 years and still probably problem number 1 or 2 in the country. There's lots of solutions for it, but I'm not smart enough to know which ones will work. I do think that we got to start thinking outside the box, though. Whatever we've been doing against drugs and drug abuse and the gangs and the violence that comes with it just hasn't worked. And I got thinking about other things like Mason County. My wife and I lived in Federal Way, moved down here to avoid the increased violence and drug problems that they were having in South Seattle. And I get down here and I find out, golly, this is not a drug-free zone at all. Lots of issues here historically. Then I find out that the sheriff's got 4,500 warrants that haven't been issued because he doesn't have the troops. And if he had the troops, he wouldn't have the place to stick them, because the jail apparently on day 1 I don't know how many years ago they built it, but it was
1985, sir.
1985, and it was too small even then, so. My recommendation when I go to the sheriff's meetings is build a 1,000-bed jail and rent the rest of the empty beds out to Gray's Harbor and the Indians, anybody, and make a fortune. And that'll solve your problem here as well for budget problems. But please don't hire any of the people from Shelton School District to help with your budgeting. They have a weakness there, so. Anyway, I just wanted to keep reminding people that drugs are a problem. They're a problem in Mason County. It's the reason that we have waves of robberies and break-ins and stolen stuff. And a lot of us are retired and we can't afford to replace a bunch of stolen stuff. You know, you know how insurance works. You get a TV for $1,000 and the next day it's worth $100, and the insurance people say, well, wait, you have $100 or $1,000 or whatever deductible, which means go buy your own TV. So that doesn't help either. So just wanted to remind people that drugs are still problem number one. This county, the state, everywhere. A final comment, if I can. If I was to write a check for $20 million, would you put my name on the new jail? Save all that paperwork.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd be the first guy in it if I wrote you a check. But in seriousness, there's another guy named Bill that lives in the county, and I think he's like the most famous and certainly the richest Bill in the whole world. And maybe just somebody ought to visit him and see if he'd like to put his name on a building. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment on items not on the agenda? Sheriff, we have item number 9 for elected.
This is like public service announcement, it's not a kind of, and I gotta leave to go to sheriff's meeting.
Is there any objection? Okay.
I'm not, this wasn't the follow-up bill. This is just my advertisement time. I hope you remember that this month is Special Olympics month. And we honor all of our Special Olympics and special needs athletes this month. And we'll be doing a run on the 30th, Thursday the 30th of this month, a law enforcement torch run to raise money for our Special Olympics athletes in Mason County. Our athletes this year, Scotty, I can only think of her maiden name, Scotty Seljested, who I grew up with anyway. She is the director for those kids that takes them and those athletes all over the state of Washington. And this year, the athletes from Shelton won the regionals in basketball this year, and we're looking to honor them by selling T-shirts for $20 that go to our Special Olympics athletes. And you could also join us if you want to run with us. Contact Chief Sperling. I just wanted to bring that up because it benefits some citizens in our community that we can really help out. Thank you.
Thanks,
I've got to go to another meeting.
Take care. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6, adoption of today's agenda. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt today's agenda.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to adopt today's agenda. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and the motion carries. Item number 7, approval of minutes, April 15th, 22nd, and 29, 2019 briefing minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the April 15th, April 22nd, and the April 29th, 2019 briefing minutes as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the April 15th, 22nd, and 29, 2019 briefing minutes as presented. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and the motion carries. Moving on to item number 8, approval of our action agenda. Commissioners will read through the items on today's action agenda, at which time a commissioner or a member of the public can ask questions in order to determine if they'd like to have an item removed for a separate discussion and vote. Once commissioners read through those items, we'll go ahead and move into that portion. Commissioner Netherland, if you'd please read 8.1 through 8.3, or I'm sorry, 8.1 through 4. Commissioner Trask, if you would please read 8.5 through 8.8, and I will take the remainder.
Happy to, Mr. Chair. Item number 8.1, approval of the Peninsula Regional Transportation Planning Organization, PRTPO, Interlocal Agreement, ILA. Item number 8.2, approval to post and fill a full-time caseworker position for therapeutic courts at a range 10 on the pay scale. Item number 8.3, approval to execute the resolution setting a hearing date with the hearings examiner for Wednesday, June 12, 2019 at 1 p.m. to consider public comment on the petition for vacation of a portion of an unnamed alley in the Plat of Allen. Item number 8.4, approval to set a hearing on Tuesday, May 21st, 2019 at 9:15 to receive public comment and consider sale of the following parcels. 32021-56-02001 and 32021-55-02011 and 32021-56-02004.
Item 8.5, approval of the public safety testing agreement to provide promotional testing services for the corrections lieutenant position. The professional services agreement includes a work performance rating and a command skills and abilities test or promotional test. The amount of the agreement is $6,750 plus associated travel expenses as outlined in the agreement. Item 8.6, approval of the resolution of intent to form a lake management district for Spencer Lake, LMD number 3, for a 10-year period commencing in 2020 and setting a public hearing on Tuesday, June 11th, 2019 at 9:15 a.m. pursuant to RCW 36.61.030. Item 8.7, approval of warrants and Treasury electronic remittances. Claims Clearing Fund warrants number 8063846 through 8064053 in the amount of $927,297.99. Direct Deposit Fund warrants number 58323 through 58698 in the amount of $685,104.07. Salary Clearing Fund warrants number 7004376 through 7004402 in the amount of $476,436. Item 8.8, approval of a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with the Squaxin Island Tribe for water quality work within shellfish protection districts.
Item 8.9, approval of a resolution setting the amounts of bonds for Mason County officials, authorizing the Human Resources Department to obtain bonds for county officials, setting a public officials position schedule bond, and creating a Mason County code. Item 8.10, approval to appoint Carl Soper to the Mason County Board of Equalization as an alternate member for a 3-year term ending May 31st, 2022. Item 8.11, approval of an interim online privacy policy for personally identifiable information until superseded by countywide adopted or amended policy. And item 8.12, approval of the resolution setting the salary of the elected sheriff at 5% above the undersheriff, and the salaries of the auditor, assessor, clerk, coroner, and treasurer, elected officials, to that of the highest paid Mason County commissioner, effective January 1st, 2020, and thereafter. Okay, commissioners, having read through that, I would like to remove item 8.12 for a separate discussion and vote. Are there any other items you would like to have removed for a separate discussion or vote? Hearing none, any members of the public would like to have an item removed for a separate discussion or vote? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion on the remaining items on our action agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of the action agenda with the exception of item 8.12, which will be removed for a separate vote.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve items on the action agenda with the exception of item 8.12, which is being removed for a separate discussion and vote. Any additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Moves us on to item 8.12, approval of the resolution setting the salary of the elected sheriff at 5% above that of the undersheriff, and the salaries of the auditor, assessor, clerk, coroner, and treasurer, elected officials, to that of the highest paid Mason County commissioner, effective January 1st, 2020, and thereafter. Just ask staff to come forward and do a briefing, and then we'll move on to public comment.
Commissioners, we have a resolution setting the salary of the electeds as well as the sheriff. The electeds are set at the salary of the highest paid commissioner, and the sheriff would be set at 5% of that of the undersheriff, and that would become effective January 1 of 2020 and thereafter.
Okay, very good. Any questions for staff? Okay, any questions from the public for staff? Okay, hearing none, we'll move into public comment. If you'd like to comment, raise your hand, the chair will recognize you. Again, keep in mind, we're going to try to adhere to that 3-minute time cap. Auditor?
Mr. Chairman, Patty McGuire, County Auditor. I speak today to oppose a pay raise for the auditor. When I ran for this office, I was well aware of what I was running for and what it paid. Although I took a significant pay cut to take this job, that was my choice and I'd do it again. In the year that I was running for this office, no one ever said to me, I'd run for auditor if only it paid more. I have a fabulous staff that manages to make me look good, and I do not believe that I deserve a bigger pay raise than what they are receiving, but that's exactly what you're considering. Finally, if there's extra money for the auditor's office, I have a list of about 50 things that I would rather spend money on before I'd give myself a pay raise. I didn't ask for this pay raise, and I think it sends the wrong message about what our priorities are in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I'm Patty McLean, assessor, new assessor. So I agree with Patty McGuire. A couple of years ago, we had budget cuts, and unfortunately, I was one of the budget cuts. And in lieu of me getting a pay raise, I'd rather see my staff get it in lieu of me getting a raise also, because they do work hard in the office to keep the doors open on Fridays now. So I'm just in agreement with Patty McGuire.
Good, thank you. Any additional public comment?
Commissioners, thank you for letting me speak. To start with, I'd just like to say that I greatly respect the office of our sheriff. I really appreciate the work that he's done. He's really upheld a lot of the will of the voters of Mason County, and I thank you guys for doing the same. But personal politics aside, it really doesn't matter. It's really just a matter of common sense. Our sheriff should be earning more than his deputies, and so I would just ask that you really consider this, look at this, and approve this situation, even if it's not for Casey. It's for every future sheriff, anybody that's ever going to serve in this office. So I would ask that you approve this measure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Any additional public comment? Okay, hearing none. Public comment.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hold on my notes here. My name is Travis Adams. I'm the undersheriff at the Mason County Sheriff's Office, and I'm here to support this proposal. I've been here for about better part of 2.5 decades at the Mason County Sheriff's Office, served here for a long time, since the mid-1990s. During that entire time, I was one of the negotiators for the deputies and supervisors, negotiated a lot of contracts on their behalf, and now I negotiate contracts on the other side. So I've been intimately involved with that for well over 20 years at the Sheriff's Office. Rather than regale you with the history of contract negotiations in Mason County, I just want to make a couple points that I think are salient here. I did a little bit of research the other day, and I came across an article from June 20th, 2016 from the Paulsbo Police Department. Paulsbo Police Department has 17 sworn officers, and I believe they have 3 office staff. So they have 20 people that work at the Paulsbo Police Office. Prior to 2016, their police chief made $125,000. When their police chief made the determination that they were going to leave, they determined that they had to raise the pay rate to between $135,000 and $142,000 in order to get qualified applicants for the position of police chief in a 20-person department. Right now, in Port Orchard, the previous police chief made $133,000. They had 30 total employees at Paulsbo Police Department. Not being able to find enough qualified applicants, they have raised the pay rates to between $146,000 and $155,000 a year. This is consistent across municipalities all over the place in Washington State for law enforcement officials. In counties, in many of the counties, a middle manager at the rank of lieutenant will make tens of thousands of dollars more than our current sheriff. Part of the problem that we have seen over recent contracts, which is good for our deputies, is they have received pay rates, pay increases over the years, especially the last couple of contracts, which have moved them up within their comparable range and has given them comparable pay, and they are pretty well paid, consistent with their comparables. The problem has been that the sheriff's pay has gone up not nearly at that rate, and we are at the point now where some of our top deputies and our supervisors make as much or more than the sheriff. Now, when our people, who are fantastic folks, who are very well trained, are experts in the field, have the opportunity to move to any department in the region and make considerably more money rather than go for the top spot in our organization, that is a problem for Mason County. It's also a problem for Mason County if our own people are disincentivized to run for that elected office due to the pay rates that are pretty much consistent across the Northwest. We are going to get applicants or people filing for office who are at best underqualified and at worst not qualified at all. And for the chief law enforcement executive in Mason County, that is not acceptable for the citizens of Mason County, I don't believe. And I certainly know that our personnel do not accept that as being reasonable. And so I strongly urge you to pass this. I very much appreciate the other elected officials in coming in and talking about the situation that they find themselves in. Our current sheriff did very much the same thing. He took a pay decrease of probably about $18,000 to come over and be the sheriff when he ran over here. But at this point, with the compression in the pay scale between our supervisors and the sheriff's position and the other opportunities that are in the field for law enforcement, it is the responsibility of good leadership to ensure that our chief law enforcement executive has a pay scale that will attract the best qualified people for Mason County. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Okay, hearing none, I will close public comment and move to commissioner deliberation or motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the resolution setting the salaries of the elected sheriff at 5% above the undersheriff, and the salaries of the auditor, assessor, clerk, coroner, and treasurer elected officials to that of the highest paid Mason County Commissioner effective January 1st, 2020 and thereafter.
Is there a second? I will second that motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution setting the salary of the elected sheriff at 5% above the undersheriff, and the salaries of the auditor, assessor, clerk, coroner, and treasurer elected officials to be that of the highest paid Mason County Commissioner effective January 1st, 2020 and thereafter. Any discussion?
Yes, I will. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be opposing this, and I believe for very, very good reason. This is one of the few times I actually wrote things down. I usually don't do that, but this is too important, and I need to make sure that we cover a few things so that we're clear on a few things. First of all, we are not talking about a regular employee. We are talking about an elected official. And you can't select pay amounts for elected officials with the idea of doing anything specifically for a person. It's actually wrong because that person may not be there, and if that person's not there, the only requirement is that they're 18 years old and a registered voter. They don't have to show up for work like everybody else does. They can go and do a lot of things that if you don't show up, you don't do something, nobody gets on you. It's a completely different thing than going out on the street, going out in the middle of the night and patrolling and stuff like that. With that being said, there was a comment about making more, the deputies making more. There's a lot of overtime with the deputies. Matter of fact, 2 years ago, out of our 5 top paid people in the whole county, 2 of them was a judge and prosecuting attorney. The other 3 were deputies for the whole county. We had one deputy that made $120,000+ that year because they choose to do the overtime. That's how that works, and I'm not complaining about that. I appreciate that they do that. But it is a big difference between an elected official. Now, there are those that ask the question on me being not supportive of this, whether or not it's political. I'll let you make up your own mind. Median household income for this county is $53,000 a year. That's household income, not one person, household. I truly don't believe that any elected official should be making more than $100,000 a year in Mason County, a county where the household median income is $53,000. Specific increases for one person. You see that we have two things separated out here. We have an increase for the electeds, of which several are asking that it not be put into place. It's not said in our paperwork, but that amount is what, 6.3% increase. Now, the one for the sheriff, you're looking at an increase. They currently make $96,000 and change. That's $96,000 a year for an elected position. This would be an increase to our budget of $39,000 plus. This is the largest increase for any individual in the history of Mason County by a long shot. I don't think that that's justifiable in any way, because again, these people know what they're making when they run for office. They choose to run for office. And although there may be an argument on whether or not we can attract good people or not, I want to remind you that 5 years ago for $85,000, we had a person that had 8 years of experience apply for that job and won the election. Last year, we had a person that had 12 years of experience for that job. They put their name in and they won that election. I say that the number that we're talking about pays plenty enough to get qualified applicants, or we wouldn't have had the sheriff that we had, and we wouldn't have Sheriff Weibart before that. Again, if we're looking at doing this for one specific person, when it comes to a raise like that, I don't think that that's justifiable. In fact, in my opinion, I think it's a gifting of public funds. I don't think anybody can justify an increase for any employee in this county of a number that size. Here recently, we've been in the middle of our union negotiations. We got quite a few contracts that are out there. We went out to all our unions and we explained to them that we're hurting for money. Please consider taking less. Please consider negotiating with us and going for an agreement that will save everybody, so we don't have to worry about laying people off. We don't have to worry about the future, as we've been able to fix our books, we've been able to fix our budget, but whatever money we have, we need to use to go forward. One of the unions trying to help us, as they had in the past, I want to make that clear. Years ago, we had another budget issue. The Teamsters stepped up and they made a different contract negotiation. People want to say how rough they are. But to us, they were very kind. They were one of the Teamsters unions, one of the first ones to negotiate with us, and we're trying to get parables amongst everybody. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's going to be voting on it here shortly. Well, the first one that voted first is going to get hurt the worst by this. The Teamsters Union agreed at 1.5% for this year, 1.75% for next year increase, 2% the year after that. We're looking at increases for the elected officials of 6.3% and 36% for one individual sheriff. How do we keep our trust with them when we went to them and told them that we needed their help? But yet, for our other electeds and our other people that we're connected to, we will treat them differently than we treated those union members and the employees that count on us to believe in us when we go and talk to them, to be straight with them. Comparables. Currently, right now, we have 7 comparables that we use. We are the 6th smallest one. There's only one county in our comparables that's smaller than Mason County. If we were to give an increase like this, we will be changing a wage from basically the bottom 3 are $100 a month off from each other. Literally, $100 a month. So our sheriff is right there with the bottom 3. We'll be changing it and we'll be competing with counties that are in the comparables, like Skagit County. Skagit County is 100% our size. 100%. 122,000 people. They have a budget that's 100% larger. They have twice our budget. And we'll be like $1,000 off from what they're paying for that person. We are not the same as Skagit County. We're not the same as these other counties. And again, it's an elected position that we're talking about. $40K is the largest increase I have a hardest time even understanding how we could even think that that's okay. Now, as we're going forward, I hope that our commission will reconsider in order to save face with our unions and in order to be realistic to our community. I've asked in the past that we have a salary commission. If we think that the elected officials deserve that kind of pay raise, let the people come forward and tell us that they think that that's what they want. A salary commission could be put together and the people themselves can tell us if that's justified. And if it is, hey, I'm for it. I can't justify it with my vote, that's for sure. I can't see how anybody could. $40K on one person, largest pay increase in the history of Mason County. We're losing public trust, employee trust. We're crushing our own negotiations. The next Teamster contract went down 100% against after this came public. 100% against. We just had one of the Teamsters vote for it. So with that, I myself, again, I think it's a special treatment. I think it's offensive. I think it's offensive to the community, and I myself cannot support it. I would rather see us spend these monies from both of these raises, go the same as everybody else, 1.5%, which would put our sheriff actually above the other ones at 1.5%. Above those other bottom ones, it'd be the third one from the bottom, not the second as our size. I'd rather see us spend that money on perhaps a new deputy or a code enforcement or animal control. We have a lot of other needs than to take care of our own electeds. We should not be any different or any better than the people that we're serving and that we're negotiating with.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Any additional discussion? Commissioner Trask?
So, I'd like everyone to know that this was not a quick decision. As far as I was concerned, with a lot of prayer, a lot of thought went into this for months. I used resources that were just not Mason County. I'm fortunate to be on the Legislative Steering Committee for the counties and was able to talk to other commissioners about what we're doing here. And other commissioners, other counties are going to be doing the same thing. They're in the process of doing the same thing right now because of the trying to get qualified candidates and to keep them and to encourage employees to go for an elected position. Right now they don't want to because they're making more pay. And this is not about a person. This is about a position and the ability to attract qualified candidates for the future. It's not about the here and now. It's about what we want for Mason County in the future. Who do we want? I prefer somebody that's qualified, not 18 years old. I prefer somebody that has a lot of experience, maybe that's in our sheriff's office right now, to want to become the sheriff. In the assessor's office, in the auditor's office, in every other elected office, it would be, I would like to encourage them to step forward and run for office. The pay is good, but because they have the pride in Mason County like I do. Our sheriff is more than just a sheriff, and we have a jail. Unlike a lot of counties, they don't have a jail. We do have a jail. We have other services, other things going on in our county. And so I would like to thank our elected officials and our sheriff for doing their jobs, for going above and beyond. Our jobs are not 8 to 5, 5 days a week. They are 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And I feel this is my way of letting them know how much I appreciate them and look forward to working with them in the future.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Commissioner Trask. So a few points. This has been an interesting process, and it's been a process that has been done out in the open for several months now, and so it has been a fully transparent process, and part of it is, as Commissioner Netherland mentioned, we are in the middle of negotiating a variety of contracts for our represented employees in the county who do a tremendous job. No doubt about it. No doubt about it at all. I can't argue with him on that. I think he's right on there. There are, and so as we went through that process, it also seemed appropriate to have our staff look at comparables for our non-represented employees as well as elected officials. And I know that it's a political third rail to talk about elected official salaries. You go out in the community and you say, what do you think an elected official, a politician should be paid? They should pay you, you know? I mean, so, but as we went through this process, I was reminded of, we're gonna hop in the Wayback Machine here, so bear with me. So there was a show popular in the 70s before I was born called The Brady Bunch. And you might remember a classic scene from that show with Jan Brady, the middle sister. And she wasn't feeling too good about her older sister Marcia, and she just said, Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. Fast forward to 2019 in Mason County, and all we hear about is Casey, Casey, Casey. Big picture. We need to think big picture here in this county. I came into office under a lot of different issues were happening in terms of the budget. A lot of issues were happening in the county that we need to solve. And I'm confident in my record of both holding the sheriff's office accountable and working with them in order to build a stronger future for Mason County. I know that it's maybe unpopular. I know that we oftentimes don't like to talk about uncomfortable policy decisions in the county. Oh well, that's not what this job's about. This job's about having the uncomfortable conversations, and I believe that there are people in this county that are understanding of that deliberative process that we have to have at the county commission level. And so I can assure you, even though the refrain has been throughout this process, you're doing this for one person, you're doing this for a friend, Marcia, 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 not the case at all. Okay? Commissioner Netherland even asked for certain data that shows that we are far off in how we treat our sheriff and undersheriff. In counties that are compared, and I'm going to throw out Skagit County because I know it's amazing that they're still a comparator of ours. But of the non-Skagit counties in our comparables that have an undersheriff and sheriff, Lewis County 5% above, Jefferson County 5% below, Grays Harbor County sheriff is 8% above, Cowlitz County is equal, Cowlitz County is equal, Clallam County is 13% above. And then you get to Mason County, and the sheriff is 26% under the undersheriff. That's data I didn't request. I didn't ask for that, but that's good data to know. And so I have moved my position on this from the beginning of our conversations. I initially, and I'm not afraid to say it, I thought we should do what we do for the judges and prosecutor in this county and tie the salary to decisions made by the state salary commission. I heard from people that they said that gives away local control. I heard that. I appreciated that. And I said, okay, what is another way that we can look at addressing this one particular issue amongst the elected official salaries? And this is the compromise that came from it. And, you know, you don't always get what you want when you're a commissioner. And, you know, and I respect the conversations that we've had. I've tried to do them in a respectful way that didn't evoke politics in a negative way. You know, I know that I'm not doing this for a friend just as much as Commissioner Netherland isn't doing it for an enemy. Not that he and the sheriff are enemies, but that would be the opposite of what I've been accused of. Okay? So throughout this process, we've had good dialogue. We've had good back and forth with staff on this. And I think we have come up with an imperfect solution to a problem that will continue to plague our county and other counties. Now, I want to move on to a couple of other things. I do want to fact check Commissioner Netherland on a couple things. He said the top five highest paid, of the top five highest paid in the county, I believe you said 2 were judges, 1 was a prosecutor, and the other 2 were deputies. Is that correct?
No, this was 2 or 3 years ago. I brought the information into him. It was, one was the district judge, because the Superior Court judges weren't counted because there was no money comes out of the county on that, I guess. The other was the prosecuting attorney. Mm-hmm. And then the next 3 at that time were deputies.
Okay. And
I believe that's 2016. It could have been 17.
Okay. And so the highest paid are in the judicial branch, in the criminal justice system, and they reside in the courthouse. The other point that I think needs to be made, is, again, we did this in open meetings. We sat and we had these conversations that were open to anybody and everybody that wanted to come in. My door has always been open. My email and phone have been up and running. So this has been an open, transparent process. And we don't have the same responsibility or luxury maybe of doing it in open that we have with union negotiations, which are closed, which are done behind closed doors. And maybe this is this is an opportunity for us to look at how we do that. Other counties have transitioned from closed union negotiations to open union negotiations so that the public can have a better idea of what is happening behind closed doors in negotiating those union contracts, which in large part are based on the same counties that we base this on. And so if there's a conversation that we need to have about labor reform in this county, let's have it. If there's a conversation we need to have about doing business in the public, let's have it, because that's exactly how we did this. Now, I know that this might leave people a little disappointed, a little bit upset. We're going to make a decision here, and we're going to move forward with continuing to build a stronger Mason County. To the auditor and assessor, I appreciate you taking the time to come down here. I will say this, as you know, Commissioner Netherland and I have both given back raises since I have been here. I don't take a retirement from the county for similar reasons that you expressed. And so if this passes, and it sounds like it will, I would invite you to have that conversation with us if you do not want to accept the raise. And that goes for every other elected official as well. And we can factor that into the 2020 budget. And so like I said, we've done that in the past and would be open to doing that with you in the future. And so I look forward to continuing that conversation with you as well. So with that, I will say an imperfect solution maybe, but a solution to a problem that has plagued Mason County for a number of years. And with that, we're going to move forward. Commissioner?
I want to reiterate what the commissioner said. I want to make it clear that this was all done in the open. I disagree with it, but none of this was hidden. The truth of the matter is, people didn't show up, but it was on the agenda, and it was in our briefing packets, the full amount of the raises and stuff. I did want to make that clear, and I do want to say that we have, both of us, when we were having our budget issues, we both wrote checks back to make sure that we can keep as many employees as we could. So that is always an option. I wanted to make a clarification on a few things when it comes to the undersheriff's salary. He is correct, but we are literally, if you take away Skagit County, that makes us the #1 highest paid undersheriff also in our comparables by a long shot. We're talking almost 20,000 and more than 20,000 in some of it for that position. The sheriff position itself, though, we are where we're supposed to be. As a matter of fact, Island County gets paid $100 more a month than our sheriff does. Island County is one of our comparables. Island County has 83,000 people, so a 30% larger county than us, with a budget, again, that's equal to that. With that being said, we're looking at $100 difference. Now, here's one other difference between Island County and Mason County. Aside from them having a bigger budget and more people, they also have no undersheriff, and then they have 3 chiefs. So they have less administration to do the job that they're doing. Here in Mason County, we're going to be increasing a person's pay by almost $40,000. And we have 4 chiefs and an undersheriff. Where Pierce County, 885,000 people, have 3 chiefs and 1 undersheriff. I just want to say our comparables are our comparables. If we're going by our comparables, the 1.5% sits them right up there above. They'd be the third from the bottom, which is we're almost to the middle, is what you're talking about when you're talking about 7 comparables that are on the list. But again, I do want to thank commissioners for, although we disagree, when we were having our meetings, it got a little testy at times, but I always felt like they listened to me and gave me the opportunity to speak my voice. And when this is done, I'm sure I'm going to lose this vote. I will sign it, as I have every other thing that I've ever done here as a commissioner. You lose, but you still are part of the same team. And so we will move forward, and we'll try to deal with our unions as we go. And I want to thank them for listening to me when I was venting on those briefings.
Okay, very good. Any additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Yay?
And the motion carries. Okay, moving on to item number 9, any department heads or elected officials that would like to address the commission. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 10, our public hearings. Item 10.1, public hearing to consider public comment on the sale of surplus parcel number 32105-50-23000, and have staff to come forward and brief.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is a hearing to sell parcel number 32105-50-23000 on East Highland Drive for $65,000. The parcel was surplused in 2014 by Resolution 71-14, and you have received a purchase and sale agreement, proposed purchase and sale agreement for this parcel for the purchase price of $65,000.
Okay, any questions from commissioners for staff? Okay, any questions from the public for staff? Hearing none, I'll move into public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on item 10.1, raise your hand, the chair will recognize you, and we'll accept your public comment. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none, I will close the public comment period and move to commissioner deliberation or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move for the approval to sell surplus parcel number 32105-50-23000 in the for the amount of $65,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the approval to sell surplus parcel number 32105-50-23000 in the amount of $65,000. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? And the motion carries. Okay, item number 10.2, we have a public hearing to consider approval of the resolution to submit a ballot proposition on the August ballot to enact a 0.3% public safety sales tax. And again, ask staff to come forward and brief.
Thank you again, Commissioners. This public hearing is to consider the resolution submitting a ballot proposition to enact the 0.3% public safety sales tax. If approved, the proposition will be on the August ballot. The proposed use of the criminal justice sales tax would be for, well, first off, the revenues are expected to be about $1,300,000. And the proposition states that it will be used exclusively for criminal justice purposes. The proceeds would then be used for additional corrections deputies, approximately $400,000. Inmate outsourcing, approximately $360,000. A jail improvement reserve of approximately $120,000. Pretrial court services for $120,000. District court $100,000. Public defense paralegal $70,000. In the clerk's office another $70,000, and for the prosecutor's office about another $60,000. The ballot measure text would read as: sales and use tax increase of 0.3% for criminal justice purposes. Mason County adopted resolution number something -19 concerning a sales tax use tax increase pursuant to RCW 82.14.450. If approved, this proposition would authorize the county to impose an additional sales and use tax of 0.3%, split between the county collecting 60% and the City of Shelton collecting 40% as required by state law. Proceeds shall be exclusively used for criminal justice purposes in accordance with RCW 82.14.450. And budgetary impacts again are about $1,300,000 of revenue to the county.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any questions for staff, commissioners? Okay, any questions from the public for staff? Chief?
So Frank, you talked about some of that money being set aside for corrections deputies.
Correct.
And that kind of coincides with the plan to transport people back and forth from the Olson building of district court, as well as when we go about the new jail project, having those people hired and trained and be able to transition them into the new, as additional staff in the new jail.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, we will move into public testimony. If you would like to make comment, raise your hand, the chair will recognize you, and come to the podium, state your name. Any public comment? Any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public comment period. Move to commissioner deliberation or motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution submitting a ballot proposition on the August ballot to enact the 0.3% public safety sales tax.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution submitting a ballot proposition on the August ballot to enact the 0.3% public safety sales tax. Any additional discussion?
Yeah, I have, I want to make it clear, I will be voting in favor of this, but what I'm voting for is putting it on the ballot. The reason why I would never deny the people the right to burden themselves. I'm still up in the air on whether or not I'm fully supportive of it and whether I will vote for it, but not because of anything that's on here. It's something that's still just missing. There's some issues with potential money and revenues that are coming in for different positions. I would want to make sure that we have some kind of a line item set aside to where those positions, before they are filled, before they are needed, will go into reserve for that opportunity when or if we do end up getting to jail, as one example. But I will be voting in favor of it for the with the idea that the people can make those decisions.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Any additional discussion? Okay. And I would just add to Commissioner Netherland's remarks there. I'm not sure if Frank mentioned this in his briefing, but this was one of the options put forward by the Citizens Budget Advisory Commission that was convened last year. And so this has already gone through a citizen-driven advisory board. It has also been recommended unanimously by the county's criminal justice working team. And so this has already begun to be vetted in, as a ballot measure in the community by folks that have either taken a look at the county's finances as part of that process last year, or folks that are a part of our counties, and when I say county, I mean, you know, folks that even work for the city criminal justice system in the county. So this has gotten a couple of looks. I do want to mention that the breakdown on here was a draft that we had discussed as a commission, I believe, last week. And so it has been kicked back to the criminal justice departments in the county for review and comment. And so we'll be finalizing that hopefully in the coming couple of weeks. One thing I can assure you of, though, is that when this ballot measure is on the ballot, people will know what the money is going directly towards. And this 0.3% is dedicated solely to these projects within the criminal justice system that are long overdue as well. So we'll be having those conversations a little bit more fully in the first couple of weeks, because we can finalize it then, but we needed to get language to the auditor's office by May 10th in order to get it on an August ballot. So that's why that's still in draft form, but the ballot language would be unchanged and to the auditor before their deadline. Any additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to item number 11, board reports and calendar. Commissioner Trask, if you get us started, Commissioner Netherland to follow, and then I'll wrap up.
Thank you. So Friday was a pretty cool day. I went to the Area on Agency Leadership Academy graduation. So they've had training for leadership for a week, and they graduated. It was quite the ceremony. It was fun to go to. Today, of course, we have this meeting. Tomorrow we have health officer interviews in the morning. I have a study group in the afternoon, and then forest festival planning that evening. Thursday is the Mason County Lincoln Day dinner. Friday, I'll be attending a women's conference in Olympia. And then we have Mother's Day, don't forget, on Sunday. And that brings us back to Monday, the county briefing. And then Monday night, I'll go to the Shelton School District Student and Family Resource Center their 1-year anniversary.
Thank you. Commissioner Netherland.
Turning points. What do they call that? That was Mix and Mingle. I attended that. Both the commissioner and I were there, and we did announce that, so I wanted to make that clear. I met with the developers for apartment complex. A busy week for people coming in. They're looking to come in apartment complex, bakery, and another one which I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but hopefully they come in. I met with some angry people that don't want one of the things to come in. So it's funny how that works. I also met with the folks from the Ridge. I had to go up and deal with some issues with the cemetery because I represent us on the cemetery board. The Women's Republican meeting. McClendon in Belfair had their annual breakfast. It's an incredible event. You know, I don't know how many people, 500, 1,000 come out for this breakfast. And it's just so wonderful to see people you only see once a year for the last 40 years. It's just incredible. And I'm so thankful that they let us be a part of it. We had our briefing. I had a YRA 15 meeting. I had a left board meeting this morning. And that brings us back to do it all over again.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. A couple items. One from last week in particular that I want to talk about. It's a word of thanks to our 35th District legislators. They completed the session, the 2019 session, somehow on time, even though they were there burning the midnight oil, which is for better or worse in some cases. But the capital budget passed and it was very favorable to Mason County. A couple of projects that I want to highlight that were put forward by the legislature that helped Mason County. We've received $6.8 million to continue work in the Skokomish Valley in order to continue habitat improvement and flood protection in the Skokomish Valley. Appreciative for that. $2 million to the Belfair Sewer for continued work on the potential expansion up to the Puget Sound Industrial Complex. Also, an additional $1.5 million for the Belfair Sewer for rate stabilization that was in the operating budget. So that was a pleasant surprise. As well as $3.5 million for the Shelton YMCA project. This is a big deal for our community. It would be our first YMCA in Mason County. And very excited about the potential of seeing that project break ground here in the near future thanks to that capital budget appropriation there. And then just a variety of other projects. The city received some money to do improvements at Wallace Nealon Boulevard in Shelton Springs and some improvements at the Civic Center. So all in all, I think, as well as the Sergeant Oyster House up in Commissioner Netherland's neck of the woods with the Port of Allen. So all in all, a lot of different projects being funded in the community thanks to our 35th District legislators. And so I'm sure they're all watching, and so I'm very grateful to them for their support on those projects this session. Going forward this week, I have a meeting with Tim Whitehead to talk about some ongoing and pending issues. As the Commissioner said, we have health officer interviews, so we'll be losing Dr. Yu, our county health officer, to retirement. She's done a tremendous job moving Mason County forward, in particular as it relates to opioid issues, and so we've made a tremendous amount of progress on that, and so I appreciate her service to the county. We'll miss her very, very much. But we're looking forward to continuing her work and hiring a new health officer for the county. Also have a RIA 14 watershed planning meeting later this week, as well as a meeting with Scott Burr from the Hood Canal Coordinating Council. I'll also be attending the Mason County Republican Party's Lincoln Day dinner, and then finishing the week with a meeting of the Alliance for a Healthy South Sound, and then back Monday for briefings and our regular Tuesday meeting. Any items to add?
I forgot to say where I'm going, so sorry. After this, Law Library, I have a meeting with ORCA. I'm really bummed about that because now that I'm doing ORCA, I'm one of the original people from the opioid stakeholder meeting. I can't go because it conflicts. I have to be in Olympia, which is a bummer, but you've been attending all those, right? And he's one of the originals also, so we're well represented there. Economic Development Council meeting, Peninsula Regional Transportation Organization meeting, briefings, YRA 15 overview, and a few other things with developers.
Okay, very good. If there is no other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I second.
Very good. We're adjourned. Have a good day, everybody. Ooh, a little extra.